Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. It's a bit of an off the cuff video today because it's talking about good old Reddit and culture shifts and how interesting it is to see things kind of change over time when it comes to the general community and also when it comes to just, little areas of it. The War Thunder Reddit is kind of an interesting place at the moment. It talks a lot about news, a lot about kind of history, and then just, generally whatever thing is happening at that time. They talked recently about the Stats Shark stuff that I'll probably talk about in the future. They talked about the Chinese stuff as well, and also many other things, because the War Thunder Reddit is kind of a hub for people who just want to chat about the game, just like a lot of other social media platforms. But over the years, the Reddit has been generally on the negative bent of things, very critical, generally pretty negative, and overall that's kind of how it is. But that kind of shifted about a year ago, and I'll kind of go through why. So, in I believe 2023, there was a huge cultural shift when it came to War Thunder. In the summer of that year, there was a huge community movement to improve the game. There was a massive review bombing that happened when it came to Steam. There was a massive, like, kind of outcry from the players asking for general things, whether it be progression changes, SL changes, or whatever it was. And Gaijin responded. They brought in a bunch of the stuff economically that, changed things and moved things around. And generally, it was seen as a very positive thing. What also happened at the same time for like community members wanting to be heard, there was this movement once again that there is like every year in War Thunder where, oh, we have to create a player council or we have to create kind of this structure so we can talk to Gaijin because they're on this, Mount Olympus and we can't get up there. And therefore, the War Thunder Player Union was set up. This was set up as a Discord first, and now it exists as a Reddit. It was a Discord, but what ended up happening is they ended up, well, as always with these types of movements, when they're set up very, very quickly, usually kind of either power gets given to the wrong people or stuff kind of goes wrong. And what ended up happening in the end, after quite a lot of weird stuff happening with some of the people who were organizing it, they ended up giving power to the wrong person in the form of a CC, and that CC nuked the server because they thought it would be funny, which is a great show how this whole idea of like CCs looking for the best interests of people or wanting to kind of like support the community in whatever way. For me, it was kind of a good show to people. Yeah, that's not always the case. So that got nuked, and now it exists as a Reddit. And if you ever go to the War Thunder Player Union Reddit, I do recommend it because it's nice to kind of see what people are talking about there, because it gives you kind of an interesting barometer on more of the negative side of the community, because it's generally quite a pessimistic place. We always talk about like the War Thunder players who continue to play the game, but somehow seem to hate it. And that is that culmination of people over there. So when it comes to that, there is quite a lot of them who want to be constructive and try and actually fix stuff, and that is interesting to look at. And then if you just enjoy raging, there's also that bit too. So today we're gonna have a look at two kind of parts of the community, and because of that shift, and because of how many people from the standard War Thunder Reddit moved over to the player union stuff, it kind of isolated both of the communities, and now you have this kind of rift between them. You have like the standard guys and generally neutral or more positive on the War Thunder Reddit side of things, and then you have the War Thunder Player Union guys who are kind of in their negative setup and going crazy. So it's interesting to see, right? So this all sparked from a post that was posted on the War Thunder Player Union, and it was by Wanu Mars. It's available. I'll leave links in the description to all of these things if you want to have a look. But basically, he he comments a lot when it comes to this Reddit, and he made a very general post, one that we've seen like a million times over when it comes to War Thunder. Oh well, let's not spend any money on the sales because that will show Gaijin because we have control of things and that's how this works. And then what needs fixing? And this is where it's always kind of the dull part, because whenever it actually comes to what needs fixing, a lot of it is just platitudes. Fair progression, reasonable SRP games. Okay, what does that mean? Fair balancing, meaningful BR adjustments and decompression. Once again, what does that mean? It's a platitude. Fair matchmaking, the game should be fun for everyone. Come on now. Fair pricing, like stop the creeping greed, not understanding that inflation exists. Restore battle pass value. It's been gutted over time. That is very true. But once again, that isn't a platitude. That's literally you can see the kind of like you can see like the progression of that kind of going down. Introduce new and stimulating game modes. Do you want to be stimulated? They know how to do it, i.e., April Fool's events. Ah, yes, because those are definitely not just capture the flag game modes or domination game modes or anything like that, or just kill each other game modes. Solve one death levers permanently, hopefully without a gun to the head. Remove anti-consumer features, loot boxes, daily login traps, etc. Daily login traps are not anti-consumer, but they're just something to keep you coming back to the game. Loot boxes, yeah, I agree, because it means that you don't get stuff in other areas. And then you have stop making tasks absurdly harder, like Heavy Metal Hero now needing 10 kills. That's true. A lot of tasks have got easier, but that one definitely has got harder. And then remove modification costs. Every vehicle should come spaded. All right. Well, there is an economical reason to not do that. Obviously, they do make money off that, but also there is another reason, which is the simple fact that if people ended up getting a vehicle spaded and they didn't have to progress through it, they'd actually put less time into it and they'd get bored quicker, which is something that does exist, right? I do think vehicles should be easier to modify, but if they just come fully spaded, then there's not really a point to playing them in a lot of areas. The sense of progression is quite important. So as you can see, a lot of this stuff doesn't actually mean anything. It's just platitudes, right? And the good thing about the War Thunder community nowadays is it's a lot harder to get away with this stuff. There's a lot more people that kind of just call this stuff out because it is what it is. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's just trying to start a riot or trying to get people talking about what is fair for them, right? So then you have this post on the standard War Thunder. So this is the proper one. And it says, "This is why I can't take anybody seriously anymore." It says, "Yes, the progression is ass, and balancing is also ass, and plenty of other things are problems, but this is a casual free to play game. There's way too much obsessiveness when it comes to this game. And quite frankly, I'd understand a player base wanting the most out of the game. This is a free game. No one is entitled to anything." That argument's a little bit odd, but I get where they're coming from. At the end of the day, since it is a free to play game, it needs to have some kind of business model to keep open. You can't just give everybody stuff for free, right? There has to be elements of monetization. But yeah, the progression could definitely be better. We've talked about it a lot. And also the balancing, as always, could be better. I think it's in a pretty decent place compared to previously, but whenever we have these conversations, it's just about top tier. And as we've said many times, top tier isn't inherently balanced because of kind of how it works. And it's always interesting looking at kind of like the comments on here, right? Because if you actually have a look at it, you have a lot of people who are basically just like, yeah, like you can't control how people spend their money. They're going to do it anyway. This doesn't work. And then also just other people just saying, everything's fine. And this is the original poster. It says, "There's nothing wrong about spending money on sales per se," even though he literally said, "Let's not spend any real money during the sales." "One could argue that something is wrong when a company treats its customers poorly and gets away with it, but that's ethics and not everyone will agree. What I'm suggesting is if people want to get something during the upcoming sales, they could get Gaijin coins now and spend them during the sales to keep them spending the signal to Gaijin that they're doing something wrong." Now, first of all, you can see here if you really want to buy something, do it with Gaijin coin. Mate, how do I like put this nicely? The Gaijin market is a completely controlled market by Gaijin. They 100% control every action that happens on it. They get 20% of every sale. They've already won before the point of sale because you have to transfer real money into Gaijin coin. Every time you see a Gaijin coin on the market, that is somebody who has put money into the market to get the Gaijin coins. So you are effectively trading real money that somebody else has put in if you are not the person who's put in it. So the idea of using them to buy stuff off the Gaijin store, they do have a monetary value. They don't just appear out of thin air. People have already put the money into it for it, right? And once again, after every transaction, Gaijin takes 20% of it, meaning that it constantly removes Gaijin coin from the market. So then people have to pump it up once again. So using Gaijin coins is actually better for Gaijin because they control the rate of it. They control everything about it. So yeah, they don't have to worry about pretty much anything. By the point of it being a Gaijin coin, they've already won. So because somebody's already spent money on it. So I don't know what the idea is there. But if you have a look at a bunch of these like general comments, a lot of them are just like, yeah, some of them are okay, some of them like who cares, and a lot of the time it's just ways of kind of like sparking conversations about things. But and then also there's some self-aware people about Reddit actually being a bubble, so that's pretty impressive. I never thought that would happen on Reddit because, as we've said many times, I've actually been called out for many of the points that pretty much are very upvoted here, like the idea of Reddit being kind of a little a bubble, and then also at the same time just having a bunch of grievances that make no sense, you know, trying to platitude people and all of this. And yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how you just have a bunch of these types of comments, which are very similar to what I've said in the past. And it's just nice to see kind of a culture change towards, yeah, the game has problems. The balance obviously isn't perfect, it never will be. And of course, the progression, especially with how many tech trees we have now, and also their opinion about it, is not good. It it just doesn't work in terms of how they actually see the game and also what people want out of the game. But you know, the game still works, it's still decent, and also there's a ton of people playing it and enjoying it, and that's the main thing. So of course, when you have a post like this, you have then a counter post on, on it. So we have the original post, and then we have a counter post to that original post, and then we have a counter post. And by the way, these guys, they don't actually show like all of the things. Like it doesn't actually show all of the points. Like it cuts off the bottom one. I think that bottom one, if it was actually added in, like the idea of everything needs to be coming spaded, I think people would have had a bit more fun. But this was the counter post. And it says, just came across this post. Bo, I'm not trying. I don't know if this is like a new age word. Bow. I'm not trying to start any drama, but the amount of deflection here is insane. No, this isn't about balancing the progression or any specific problem. The original post, the one in the screenshot, so in the player union, is simply trying to get people to do something to improve the game. But there is this weird hate train that, quite frankly, looks like a bunch of Gaijin paid actors. Ah, yes, all of those wonderful paid actors. I get accused of being paid by Gaijin every day to like make videos because that would make sense from them, right? Just have like a random dude, just give him a shit ton of money, and he will like push like narratives. But also at the same time, there are many videos, at least for me, that I've made that are completely anti the way Gaijin are doing things. Even this one, right? Talking about the progression stuff. But yeah, everything is just Gaijin paid actors. It can't be people enjoying a product. No. It can't be people being happy with where a product is. No, they have to be paid. There is messages like, this looks like AI, and other things trying to discredit the post. But once again, this is deflection. This post, unfortunately, is deflection. It's not like AI is always bad. It's a tool, so even if the poster used AI to write, that it does not mean you could just disregard all of it. Oh no! Oh no! War Thunder has been on a slow and gradual slope downhill for years now. And when Gaijin put a small cliff in that downward hill, people got together to review bomb the game. Yay, a small victory in the community, which then once again got completely drowned out by slow, hard to process changes that ruined the game. Right. Not gonna lie, I'm half expecting this post to be taken down for some obscure rule, but I still want to make my point clear. Not to hate on anyone in either of the posts or comments, you're just all paid actors. But because people seem to have turned completely blind to the terrible state of the game, maybe people just don't think it's bad. And that's the thing. When you actually have a look at like a lot of the comments, it's like, yeah, we actually kind of enjoy it. And it's not that bad. You can see here like the top comment, right? Most people are fine with the game as it is. The only real issue is compression, but people just abuse the meta vehicles and stop complaining. I do agree the meta vehicle issue is a problem. I'm not going to lie to you, Reddit and the forums are an echo chamber of people who are unsatisfied. I'm reading this on Reddit. Man, we really have shifted in terms of this. It's beautiful to see. It's like going to a phone repair store and expecting to find people who had 10 out of 10 experiences with their phones to be there. Obviously, most of them there are the only ones because they have something that broke. Yeah, and that's something that I've said before. Usually, people don't actually write comments about things if they're satisfied. They just kind of enjoy the thing. Maybe they'll like give it a good review at some point, or maybe they'll give it like 5 stars or whatever. But most people, if they're happy with the product, they're silent because they're enjoying the product. Same with the forums. Many people don't go there if they have no issues. So when you look at it and only see issues, don't be surprised. Those that don't have issues have already shut the fuck up and don't open the forums until their next issue. One of the things to also mention is, and this is something that really needs to be kind of talked about. When it comes to the vast majority of posts and the vast majority of like comments, especially when it comes to War Thunder forum, what you find is there's a massive percentage difference. So what I mean by this is the vast amount of posts on stuff like the War Thunder forum are done by an incredibly small amount of people. So the actual percentage of people talking about these things compared to the overall community is tiny, but they just post a lot and they're usually quite loud. And this is something we saw during the Chinese stuff. This is also something whenever we see during kind of like a brigading setup from the War Thunder forums. It also happens on Discords. There are certain Discords where there are, the same 10, 20, 30 people who always talk, and then they transfer that talk onto the forums or onto the Reddit. And then what you do is you end up basically creating this mothball from 20 or 30 people. I've literally seen it before my eyes. People posting on Discord, hey, go vote this poll, stick comments on it so other people see it. It's all just full on brigaded, and it's been happening for years. So it's just a way that people have realized they can get the attention of Gaijin because of the simple fact that Gaijin doesn't check these things. Technically, it's against the rules of Reddit and other places to actually do this, but it doesn't matter. They continue to do it anyway. So yeah, a lot of the comments are like this. They're just like, look, we just kind of enjoy it. And yeah, the problems here don't really matter. And then you can see here, right? Once again, Spanish Avenger's back, and he's decided for a long time that the Type 10's broken steering is the biggest issue since sliced bread. And the biggest problem with this is this: most people just don't care. Like, that's the thing. The Type 10 is already a really good vehicle. It may have broken steering, which is something that I experienced when I spaded it and talked about it in the review of it. When I played through the Type 10 and the TKX, it sucks. It really does. But guess what? Most people don't care because it's still a very powerful vehicle. It still works really well, and they're never going to play it. And that is a problem with the overall issues with the game, where you have so much of the game that people can't progress through. They generally focus on like a small percentage of it, and when they do that, it basically just means that they just don't care about other stuff, and that's just how the game is. And then you have somebody else who's like, no, you have to understand this is a big issue, and you need to sort this out. It's a bug, it needs to be fixed. And the person's just like, I don't care though. Who cares? It's a bug, it'll eventually get fixed. Why does it matter? And then it just goes on and on and on. And I'm just glad we can be honest about these things, because this type of like thing has been going on for a long time in War Thunder, where we've had areas of the community which are just hyper negative and always fixated on issues, right? Even if they're the smallest of issues, or they're hyper fixated on platitudes to try and annoy people to get them conversating about whatever the perceived issues are, right? And nowadays, there is both sides of the coin. And it's interesting to look at both sides to see guys speaking up actually be like, hey, I actually kind of enjoy this game. Like, it's pretty fun. And that's nice. It's something that I feel like in the oldie days of War Thunder would have never happened, because you'd always have to deal with the narratives of the hyper negative dudes and everybody else would just be enjoying the game. Just kind of cool. Like, we all agree that the game has issues. The way that the game is structured, it will always have issues because of the amount of content that Gaijin adds to the game, because of the amount of changes that they do in the game. There's always going to be little things wrong, and there's always going to be things that are really good, and also some things that are really bad. And in a PvP setting, you are never going to have 100% balance. It's just never going to happen. It can't happen at the end of the day, especially with how many mechanics are wandering about and how many other things are. But the fact that there's a realization that, yes, this is a pretty good game, and yes, it's enjoyable to actually go through and play, is just kind of nice. And it's kind of refreshing. Since over like the last month or so, I feel like there's just been so much negativity with all the Chinese stuff going on, like when it comes to War Thunder, with all the standard stuff going on, like with, the updates and also the last one with the armor breaking and then obviously the missiles breaking, two huge things that luckily are now fixed. It's just nice to see some people are like, yeah, it's kind of fun. Optimism is a blessing. And my God, I feel like, at least for me, over like the last year or so, when it comes to War Thunder stuff, there's been just so much pessimism, and I'm just sick of it. It reminds me of the old days where every other post was just people saying, "Is the game dying? Is the game dying?" No, it's not. Okay, well, I'll continue to play it then. Yeah, go ahead. And also, as always, if people aren't enjoying the game, they feel like everything needs to be fixed. If you feel like these fundamental things, which are basically all of the game, by the way, need to be fixed, it's definitely time to just take a step back, go on like Fanatical or something like that, go pick up a bundle of games and go play those for a bit and compare and contrast. Because one of the issues I feel like War Thunder has is people get sucked in and don't play anything else. You need to play other stuff to get a sense of perspective. It's very important. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.